Have you ever heard someone say, you are what you eat? Or a calorie is a calorie, they're all the same? And then maybe you and your friend go on a similar diet and your friend loses pound after pound and you're stuck in place? Well, I think what the data is telling us is that might not be true. Not all calories are the same, and we aren't what we eat. We may be more what our microbiome eats. Our microbiome is a good, healthy flora that's inside of our body that get first dibs on the food that we eat. And maybe you have noticed, if I eat something, if I cheat a little earlier in the day, this seems to impact me less than if I cheat at night and have a big piece of cake or something before going to bed. You might have written that off to being more metabolically active throughout the day, moving around, walking a little bit more, and those things can be true, but in addition to that, there are different bacteria that are active inside your body in the morning versus at night. And so the bacteria that interact with food in the AM have a better ability to break that food down, to extract substrates from it, to make more energy from it. The bacteria at night that wake up are a little slower in moving. They don't extract energy as well, and this is done so that we'll be more likely to go to sleep. We won't get as much energy from what we ate in the morning, and as we sleep, we'll be able to store more of that. That may have been good at one time where we had more food shortages and there was more of a need to be able to store more of this food, but that's hardly the issue for most of us now. Particularly in America, we know that 60 to 65% of the population is either obese or overweight, and so what we now struggle with is how to stay nutritionally competent without being overweight. And many of us know that reality of trying to diet, trying to restrict calories, but not seeing the outcome we would expect. It's not merely about restricting calories, it's also about shifting our microbiome, because if we can change the bacteria in our gut, we can increase bacteria that extracts more energy, that breaks down more calories, and makes it easier for us to maintain metabolically, makes it easier to prevent weight gain. Why is this true? Well, one reason that this is true is that good bacteria in the gut versus dysbiotic bacteria in the gut are better at producing vitamins. When we have the right bacteria there, we will produce things like B12 that give us energy, but also help us in terms of turning food into energy, i.e., burning more calories. When we're able to create more vitamins because of the right bacteria, this says to the rest of the body, I'm getting the B12 I need, I'm getting the biotin, the vitamin K that I need, and therefore I do not need to hold on to calories. I can keep my metabolism moving. When that bacteria is not there, we will say, I'm malnourished, I'm not getting what I need, hold on to that calorie, store it into fat, it looks like I'm in a famine and I'm going to need to hold on to everything that I get. Other shifts in the microbiome will also dictate the rate at which we gain weight, the rate at which we're at risk for things like obesity. Two species of flora, one called Firmicutes and one called Bacteroides, and that ratio shifts as we age. That ratio can also shift for reasons other than age, dietary habits, the environment, medications that we're on. And as that ratio shifts, regardless of whether or not you're a baby or a centenarian, somebody over 100, it will change the way that you're able to process calories. When that Firmicutes to Bacteroides ratio shifts, these are people that are more at risk for being overweight and more at risk for things like diabetes. Several studies have focused on this different metabolic effect that we will have. One of the studies has shown that when there's healthy bacteria in the gut, you're more likely to take those carbohydrates and take those proteins and shunt them right into the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the part of the cell that makes energy. So rather than taking calories and turning it into fat tissue, the right bacteria takes those calories and converts it into energy instead. We feel better, but we're also less likely to gain weight. Other studies that look at the microbiome and ability to gain weight or lose weight take mice and wipe out all their good healthy flora. So one group of mice has no bacteria in the gut. Then other groups of mice get fed a diet that will cause obesity or that will keep them lean. So a group of rats they get bigger and they're fatter, but one stays lean. Then They take bacteria from each of our groups, the overweight group and the lean group, and put that bacteria into the germ-free mice, and they look at what happens next. What happens next is the mouse that got the bacteria from the lean mice stay lean, and the mouse that got the bacteria from the fat mice get fat as well. So when they change that diet, what they see is that the group that gets the diet that is designed to cause them to gain even more weight will not gain as much weight if it got the bacteria from the lean mice in the first place. So even when diet is shifted, fat mass does not go up as much if you have different bacteria present. So what we know is that if we can work on our microbiome, and if we can work to build things like Enterobacter and species that are isolated from more lean sources, even when compounded by high-fat diets, the impact is not the same. So what we know is that it's not just the calories that we eat, but it's also our bacteria that is present. Now, let's flip-flop that and look at it some different ways. One diet that we think of that's being very effective in terms of losing fat mass is something called a ketogenic diet. And this is a diet that's very low in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are typically what tells our pancreas to make insulin. When you eat high amounts of carbohydrates, this is the signal to release insulin. When you release insulin, that is what tells fat cells to turn on and store more fat. That is what tells your liver to make cholesterol, to make triglycerides, not actually fat itself. So a ketogenic diet lowers carbohydrates and turns off the switch towards weight gain, turns off the switch towards high cholesterol and high triglycerides. A ketogenic diet was thought to work because of what you intake: low carbohydrates and higher fat. It was thought that the lower carbohydrates influence insulin, and this is why you don't gain weight. However, other times you'll use a ketogenic diet is to prevent seizures. And again, this is a diet that's higher in fats. The thought process was when you eat more fat, the brain is 85% fat, so it changes the chemistry. And we've known for years that ketogenic diet is largely successful in terms of reducing epilepsy, reducing seizures. It was credited to the change in fat content, that would change the brain content and therefore reduce seizures. What we're now seeing is that the ketogenic diet is not working because of necessarily the reduction of carbohydrates and the increase in fats. But when you alter the diet in that manner, it changes the microbiome. So when Akkermansia, a flora, goes up because of a ketogenic diet, it looks like it's this bacterial change that's more responsible not only for weight loss and preventing diabetes, but also preventing the seizures as well. Again, it gets back to, it's not the calories that we're eating, it's not the protein or the fat, but how it influences our microbiome that it will have these different outcomes throughout our body. So when you increase that type of bacteria, what will happen is you will not gain as much fat. Also, that type of bacteria will compete with something called endotoxins. Endotoxins are lipopolysaccharides, or LPS. They come from bad bacteria. Endotoxins anger your fat cells and tell your adipose tissue to hold on to fat. That inflammation that comes from endotoxins angers your liver as well. It tells your liver to make more triglycerides, to make more cholesterol. And again, we're getting back to the idea that this weight gain comes not from the calories, but how it influences your bacteria. That not only influences your fat cells, but it influences your liver, increasing your chance of high lipids as well as diabetes. Not only will a ketogenic diet increase this type of bacteria, so will kale. So incorporating some certain vegetables into our diet, yes, they're low in calories, but they can change our microbiome to help in a feed-forward way to keep that weight off and to keep us to where we should be. A second thing that happens when we have the right bacteria in the gut, when we have more good guys versus bad guys, we make more short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids are made when good bacteria chew up fiber and it creates certain compounds, things called acetic acid or propionic acid or butyrate. butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid, is anti-inflammatory. It's associated with less weight gain. It's also associated with less cancers. However, when some of these short-chain fatty acids get out of balance, if we get too much propionic acid or acetic acid, they can also tell the liver to make more triglycerides, to make more cholesterol. So when we've worked with diet and we've worked with other therapies to lower cholesterol or lower triglycerides, and we're not seeing those work as we would expect, we need to think about not only us, but our bacteria, our microbiome, and this is a logical area to intervene to help with a stubborn metabolism, to reduce insulin resistance and decrease things like diabetes. Good healthy flora help in another way. They make us feel less hungry. When our good healthy flora is intact, it will encounter food. If it encounters nutrition in that food, not a processed diet, but whole foods, things that are green and red and full of antioxidants and phytonutrients, the microbiome reads this as a time of feast. It will cause our gut, it will cause our intestinal lining to release something called GLP-2. When GLP-2 is released, this tells our brain that we're full and keeps us from overeating. This is one of the reasons that processed food, you can sit there and eat a whole bag of chips at night and still not feel full, because it's not telling your microbiome that you're getting the nutrition that you need. So even though the calories are there, the cell signaling to tell your brain that you're full does not occur. When we have the right flora, it reduces hunger, it increases satiety, and therefore makes us eat less, decreasing total energy intake by as much as 10 to 20%. This same cell signaling mechanism, increasing this GLP-2, not only helps us to feel more full, it also reduces insulin resistance and reduces diabetes. Taking probiotics is one way to increase our microbiome, but prebiotics are another way to shift this as well. I'm sure you've all heard that fiber can make you feel more full and that fiber can be a part of weight loss. Well, it's not just that it's putting bulk in your stomach, but it serves as a prebiotic, helping good flora to grow. And again, when that flora grows, it signals the rest of our body, I have nutrition, I'm full, I feel good, and we're less likely to overeat. That same GLP-2 tells the rest of our body that our stomach lining is healthy. And when the brain reads that the stomach lining is healthy, it says, ah, my body is not in stress. That reduces stress signals. When we reduce stress signals, we're also less likely to gain weight around the middle. So it's one more way that a healthy microbiome helps the body overall, helps the system understand I have enough calories, I feel well, I'm able to stay lean. Another thing that healthy gut lining does, that improved mucosal barrier does, is that it keeps things from leaking into the body that should not. If larger pieces of food leak into our body because the gut lining is damaged, or if pieces of bacteria leak into our body because the gut lining is damaged, which happens when the microbiome is compromised, it will create an inflammatory state. When we're more inflamed, when there are more cytokines and interleukins and things made by the immune system, this is one more signal that tells our body we're under stress, hold on to that fat. It will increase a hormone known as leptin that tells us I can't lose weight right now, I better hold on to every calorie because I'm under a stress, I'm under an assault. So there are many reasons that if we can put the mucosal barrier back in place, if we can improve the microbiome, it will improve how we interact with calories. It will improve the nutrition that we get from them. It will improve the signaling not only to our brain, but to our liver, and even right down to our fat cells. Our microbiome creates a healthy conversation with the rest of our body, telling us we feel full, we feel well, and we don't need to hold on to that extra fat, that we are able to stay metabolically competent.